It's just the most common human impulse in the world.
Ugh.
You meet someone new, maybe it's a date, maybe a potential business partner, maybe just a new neighbor, and you desperately want to know who they actually are.
Yeah.
So what do? We ask them. We look them right in the eye and we ask, what do you like? Or what do you value? Or, are you a nice person?
And we almost always get a completely useless answer.
It's worse than useless, isn't it? It's actively misleading.
It is.
Look at the brochure, you get the press release, you get the version of themselves they rehearsed in the shower that morning.
It's the curated self. I mean, when you ask a direct question, you're inviting a direct conscious filter. People tell you who they want to be or who they think you want them to be.
A performance.
It's a total performance. But if you really want to understand the architecture of someone's mind, their values, their fears, their actual worldview, you have to come at it sideways.
Sideways is where the truth lives. I like that. Sideways. And that's really what we're digging into here, this whole concept of the indirect question, how to bypass that social filter and get to the raw data of human behavior. But I want to be clear. We aren't just talking about trusting your gut or some vague intuition. There's a logic to this.
Think of it as data mining, but for personality.
Yeah.
The core principle here is extrapolation. You're looking for small, concrete choices, things that seem trivial on the surface that actually represent these massive underlying structures in the brain.
Okay, so let's test this. Let's start with something that feels totally innocent but is actually a gold mine. The news.
Ah, yes.
If I want to know your politics or your worldview, I shouldn't ask, who did you vote for? Right? Because that just starts a fight.
Right. That puts people in the defensive immediately. The walls go straight up.
And the conversation's over.
It's over. Instead, you ask, where do you get your news? Just sounds like small talk. Oh, do you watch cable? Do you read the papers? You ask them which channel they turn on, which magazine's on their coffee table, which specific pundits or, podcast hosts they listen to religiously.
But hold on. Is it really that simple? I mean, obviously, if someone says, I watch Fox or I watch MSNBC, you can probably guess their voting record.
Yeah.
But that feels a little surface level. Is there more to it than just the partisan lean?
So much more. The partisan lean is, that's the easy part. That's entry level.
Okay.
What you're really looking for is the structure of their consumption. Are they reading long-form essays in a monthly periodical, or are they scrolling through 30-second clips on social media?
Okay, play that out for me. Say I meet someone who only gets their news from, I don't know, TikTok or Twitter headlines. What does that actually tell me about their psychology? Because, to play devil's advocate, everyone is on social media now. Does that just mean they're modern?
It's not about being modern. It's about the tolerance for nuance. Think about it. If your primary information intake is 30-second clips, you are likely conditioning yourself, or you're revealing a pre-existing preference for high emotional arousal, very low context information.
High emotion, low context.
Exactly. It suggests a desire for the world to be simple, to be punchy and immediate. There's a right answer and a wrong answer, and I want it now.
Versus the person who subscribes to, say, The Atlantic or the Wall Street Journal and actually reads the full articles.
Right. That person is revealing, well, a longer attention span, yes, obviously. But it's more than that. It's a higher tolerance for cognitive dissonance.
For things not being so black and white.
Exactly. Long-form journalism usually requires you to hold two opposing ideas in your head for a while before you get to the conclusion. A clip just gives you the conclusion in the first 3 seconds.
So the reader values complexity. The scroller values what? Certainty?
Certainty and, frankly, dopamine. It's a little hit every time you swipe. And look at the guru dynamic, too. Does this person rely on a specific, singular pundit for all their opinions? I only listen to Joe Rogan, or I only listen to Rachel Maddow.
I know people like that. They basically outsource their critical thinking to a host.
That reveals a desire for a charismatic leader. It reveals a trust in authority figures, but only provided those figures are confirming their bias.
Right.
You can contrast that with someone who says, well, I read the Times for the news, but then I'll check the National Review just to see what the other side is saying.
That person is a masochist.
Maybe. Or psychologically, they're just high in what we'd call openness to experience. They don't need the world to be a simple good versus evil narrative to feel safe. They can handle the messiness of it all.
That is a huge distinction.
Yeah.
So you're looking at how they consume just as much as what they consume.
Precisely. It's a single data point, that allows you to draw a line and see where it goes. And that's really the mission, if you want to call it that, of this kind of observation.
Right.
We are trying to look past the surface answer to find the behavioral pattern.
The real signal.
We want to see where they direct their attention, their resources, and what's really interesting, their imagination.
Speaking of resources, let's talk about motivation, because this is where I think people deceive themselves the most.
Oh, absolutely. It's the ultimate blind spot.
Everyone says, I'm motivated by making the world a better place, or I just want to be happy.
The beauty pageant answers.
Exactly. It doesn't tell me anything. So the question to cut through that is, what prize would you work hardest for, and what punishment would you work hardest to avoid?
This cuts right to the instinctual level. We are moving way beyond I want a promotion. We are asking, what does this person consider to be pain, and what do they consider to be pleasure? Because that definition is fundamentally different for every single person.
Let's look at the example of the gambler, because on the surface that seems obvious. The prize is money, right? They want the jackpot. That's why they're sitting at the casino.
Is it, though? I mean, if the prize was just money, there are so many more efficient, safer ways to get it than playing slot machines.
Well, sure. But they think they can beat the system. That's the idea.
That's the narrative they tell themselves. But look at the behavior. If you really look closely at a habitual gambler, often they aren't chasing financial security at all.
What are they chasing?
They are chasing the rush. The risk itself is the prize. The dopamine hit of the uncertainty, that feeling of maybe, that is what they are working for.
So if you ask them, what prize would you work hardest for, and they were being brutally honest, it wouldn't be $1 million. It would be the feeling that I might win $1 million.
Precisely. Or you could consider the darker side of it. Are they gambling to fill a void?
Yeah.
Is the prize just a distraction from their life?
So they're not running towards something, they're running away.
Are they trying to escape a reality they can't handle? If that's the case, their motivation is pure escapism. And that tells you they value relief far more than they value achievement.
Belief over achievement. Wow. That is a powerful diagnostic tool right there.
And it applies everywhere. Let's take it into the corporate world. You have someone who wants to be CEO. They are grinding, working 80-hour weeks, missing their kids' birthdays. What is the prize?
The title, the corner office, the money, the stock options.
Those are the tokens. They're the symbols. But what do the tokens represent? For some people, the prize is power, the ability to control outcomes and other people. For others, the prize is status, the admiration of their peers. They need the applause.
They want to be seen as successful.
And for others, and this is more common than you'd think, the prize might just be safety.
Safety, by being a CEO. That seems like the most high-stress way to be safe I can imagine.
Not if you grew up poor. If you have a deep-seated scarcity mindset, that massive salary and the golden parachute represent the ultimate wall against poverty. It's not about buying a yacht. It's about the certainty of never being hungry again.
So if the prize is safety, they're going to lead in a very different way than if the prize is power.
Completely differently. The safety CEO will be risk-averse, protective, maybe a little bit paranoid. They'll hoard cash. The power CEO might be aggressive, expansionist, maybe even tyrannical. Same job, same goal on paper, but completely different internal drivers.
And then there's the flip side of this. The punishment. What would you work hardest to avoid?
This reveals their nightmares. And again, don't assume. Does someone work hard to avoid being broke? That's a pure survival drive. Do they work hard to avoid being embarrassed? That's a social shame drive. Totally different.
I feel like boredom is a big one for a lot of entrepreneurs I know. They aren't really running toward money. They are running away from the stagnation of a normal Tuesday afternoon.
Yes, the fear of the mundane, the terror of the ordinary.
And that tells you they might be chaotic. They might even create problems just to have something to solve. I've worked with people like that. Everything is a 5-alarm fire drill because they just can't handle the quiet.
That's the stimulation drive. If the ultimate punishment is boredom, they will happily burn the house down just to feel the heat.
That is dangerously accurate. Okay, let's follow the money a bit more literally. We talked about the prize, but let's talk about the bank statement. Because there is that old saying, show me your budget and I'll tell you your values.
It is the ultimate truth teller. It never lies. The question here is, where do you spend money freely and where do you skimp? And the key concept to grasp is that material belongings, they eventually lose their utility.
Right. A $20 watch tells time just as well as a $20,000 watch. Actually, my cheap digital watch is probably more accurate than a Rolex.
Exactly. So the spending isn't about utility, it's about what the item represents. It's about the identity the money is buying for you. Let's use the vacation example,
Yeah.
because this is where you see these really stark contrasts in values.
Okay, let's say we have person A. They go on this vacation, and they spend a fortune on some epic boat excursion. Swimming with sharks, helicopter rides, hiking a glacier. Crazy stuff. But then they stay in a hostel or a really shabby, cheap motel.
What does that tell you?
That they're cheap.
Maybe. But they weren't cheap about the helicopter ride.
True, so they value the event, the experience.
They value experiences, they value memories, adventure, the narrative of their life. They view luxury accommodation as waste because it doesn't add to the story. They're collecting moments, not things. They want to come home with a tale to tell.
Versus person B. They book the five-star resort. We're talking golden toilets, 1,000-thread count sheets, a personal butler, but they never leave the property. They don't see the local culture. They just sit by the pool, sipping cocktails.
Person B values comfort. They value status and pampering. But I think if you go deeper than that, they are likely using money to buy a buffer between them and the messiness of the world.
A buffer. Explain that.
Think about it. Real travel is stressful. It's chaotic. There are language barriers, strange food. Person A runs toward the chaos for the adventure. Person B uses their money to smooth all of that chaos out. They want frictionlessness. Person A wants friction. They want the grit. Person B wants smoothness.
And neither is wrong. I mean, sometimes I just want to sit by a pool and do nothing.
Of course not. Neither is wrong. But they are fundamentally different ways of engaging with reality. If you tried to date person B and you're person A, you are going to have a miserable time together. You'll be dragging them up a mountain while they're complaining about the bugs and the lack of Wi-Fi.
Notice how this is so different from just asking, what do you value? If you ask person B, what do you value? They might say, oh, I love travel and experiencing new cultures, because that sounds good. That's the brochure answer.
But the credit card bill says, I love high-end cotton and being waited on.
The credit card doesn't lie. It is the brutal, honest historian of our actual choices.
And this applies to time as well, not just money. Where does the time flow? Do you spend 3 hours scrolling TikTok or 3 hours cooking an elaborate meal for your friends? Consciously or unconsciously, that resource flow is defining your value system.
Okay, so that covers what we do for ourselves. But what about what we do for the world? There's this charity test question. If you had millions to give away, what charity would you donate it to?
This shifts the focus entirely. It forces the person to look outward, beyond themselves. It asks a really profound question. When your own needs are met, whose interests do you prioritize? It's a hierarchy of empathy.
So let's break down a few common answers. Say someone chooses an animal shelter. I'd give it all to the dogs.
Okay, on the surface, that's simple. They love dogs. But psychologically, what does that represent?
Innocence. Something pure.
Yes. Animals are voiceless. They are pure. They don't have hidden agendas or complicated motives. But there's a shadow side to this, too, sometimes. Prioritizing animals over humans often signals a disillusionment with human complexity.
Like that bumper sticker. The more people I meet, the more I like my dog.
Exactly. I've heard people say that explicitly. If someone exclusively supports animals over humans, it might suggest they find human relationships draining or treacherous. They're craving a connection that is simple and unconditional.
That's a really interesting angle. Almost a misanthropic charity in a way.
Huh.
Okay, what about cancer research? Or some big medical foundation?
That person values science. It values solving human suffering through logic and progress. It's a very systemic approach. I want to fix the problem at the root. It might also be personal, a legacy of loss, of course, but generally it's a pragmatic, solution-oriented form of empathy.
Versus, say, sponsoring a child. A specific child where you get the letters and you put the photos up on the fridge.
That is all about individual connection. That person values legacy on a personal scale. They want to see the direct impact of their action on another human being's face. They aren't trying to cure cancer in the abstract. They're trying to save this person. It reveals a deep need for intimacy in their altruism. They need to feel the bond.
So we have the innocent, the systemic, and the intimate, all just from one hypothetical check.
And again, listen for the emotion behind it. Are they angry when they talk about the charity? Are they tearful? The emotion tells you where that value is really rooted.
Let's pivot to something a bit more internal. We've looked at money and charity. Now I want to look in the mirror. Or, more accurately, how we wish we looked in the mirror. There's this game, I love this concept of designing the avatar.
This is a great thought experiment. You ask someone, if you could design a character in a game, basically yourself, and you had a limited number of points to distribute, what traits would you emphasize and which would you ignore?
Okay, so I have a bucket of points, and I can put them into charisma, intelligence, humor, honesty, resilience, emotional awareness, but I can't have it all.
Right. It's a zero-sum game. To be a super genius, you might have to be socially awkward. To be incredibly charming, you might have to be a bit dim. You have to make choices.
So if I dump all my points into intelligence and resilience and I leave charisma and humor at, like, 0, what am I saying?
You are revealing your ideal self. The traits you max out are the ones you either believe you possess and are proud of, or more tellingly, the ones you desperately wish you possessed. They are the currency of your self-esteem.
But I have to push back on this one slightly. I play a lot of RPGs. Sometimes I just build a character because it has the best stats for the current meta of the game. I'm not trying to be that big brute with an axe. I just want to win.
That's a fair point, but listen to what you just said. You prioritized winning over expression.
Okay, you got me there.
See, even the pragmatic choice is a value judgment. You valued utility and competence over aesthetics or identity. If I asked a different player, they might say, oh, I chose the elf because they look cool even though their stats are weak. That person values identity over victory.
So there is no escaping the psychoanalysis, is there?
Not really. Every choice is a mirror. But I think what's even more telling is the stats you ignore. If you leave honesty at 0 to max out intelligence, you are saying, in a pinch, I would rather be smart than truthful.
That is a massive revelation about your moral landscape. It's saying, in my world, survival depends on being the smartest person in the room, not necessarily most honest.
Exactly. You are designing the toolkit that you think you need to survive your life.
This connects beautifully to a study I was reading about, the Dustin Wood study. This one kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Ah, the projection study.
Yes. So, essentially, what he found was that people tend to describe other people with the exact same traits they possess themselves.
It's a classic phenomenon of psychological projection. We just assume that our mental makeup is common. We assume everyone is basically running the same operating system that we are.
So if I walk around describing everyone I meet as kind and generous, it's not necessarily because they are, it's because I am.
It's because that is your baseline. You project your own internal state onto the blank slate of a stranger. If you are a genuinely kind person, you will interpret ambiguous behavior as kind. You automatically give people the benefit of the doubt.
But the flip side of that is where it gets scary.
The flip side is cynicism. If you meet someone who describes the world as a snake pit where everyone is out to get you, where no one can be trusted.
The guy who says everyone has an angle?
Right. Everyone has an angle. That person is holding up a giant mirror to their own internal landscape. They are telling you, I have an angle. I am not to be trusted.
That is a red flag the size of a billboard.
Yeah.
I don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
It usually translates to, you shouldn't trust me.
It almost always does, because if they were trustworthy, they would assume others were too. It's a fundamental default setting.
That really changes how you listen to people complain, doesn't it? When someone is just ranting about how stupid their coworkers are or how lazy their family is.
They are handing you their own name tag. It's the Dustin Wood rule. Listen to the adjectives people consistently use for others. Those are almost always the adjectives that define their own ego.
Speaking of ego, let's talk about the big milestones. Success and failure. The big question, what is your most meaningful achievement? And what is your biggest failure?
These aren't just events, they are identity markers. Large events reverberate through a life. They shape the story we tell ourselves about ourselves.
But it's not just about the event itself, right? It's about the framing, how they tell the story.
Precisely. Let's take the career woman example. She's reached the corner office. She says that is her greatest achievement. But the real data is in the why.
Right. Is it about the money? Is it the status? The power?
If she says, I made it here despite everyone telling me I couldn't, she is telling you she values independence and resilience. Her story is a battle. She sees herself as a warrior.
Versus if she says, I built a great team and we accomplished this together.
Then she values connection and leadership. Same achievement on paper, I'm the CEO, but two completely different value sets. One is fiercely individualistic, the other is communal.
And the failure, what does that reveal?
This is where it gets really raw. Failures poke at the specific flaws people hate in themselves.
The anti-self. The person they're afraid they are.
Yes. If their biggest failure story is about a time they let someone down, they live in fear that they are unreliable. If a failure story is about a time they look stupid, they are terrified of being seen as incompetent.
So if you want to know someone's deepest insecurity, don't ask, what are you insecure about?
Yeah.
Because they'll never tell you.
No.
You ask about their biggest failure and just listen to what hurts the most in the telling.
You listen for the adjective they use to beat themselves up. I was so stupid. I was so lazy. I was so selfish. That one word is their demon.
This moves us nicely into a distinction that I think trips a lot of people up, especially in their careers. The difference between being good at something and actually liking it. Competence versus joy.
This is critical. We often assume that if someone is talented at something, they must love doing it. Oh, you're great at math. You should be an engineer. And that is a very dangerous assumption.
The question here is, what is effortless for you and what is always exhausting?
And we have to be really clear with the terms here. Effortless doesn't always mean I'm a genius at this. It means this doesn't drain my battery. It might even generate energy. And exhausting doesn't mean I'm bad at this. It means this costs me a lot of energy to do.
Let's use the baker example from the outline. This really clarified it for me.
So imagine a baker. She might be incredibly competent at following recipes. She makes perfect cakes every single time. If you watched her, you'd say, wow, she's a natural. But internally, she might find the repetition incredibly boring. She might hate the rigid structure of it. It's exhausting for her, even though she's very, very good at it.
But because she's good at it, everyone keeps asking her to do it. Her boss, her family.
That's the competence trap. You get promoted for things you hate doing just because you're capable. It's a terrible place to be.
But then, maybe on the weekends, she tries to invent a new dessert from scratch. And honestly, the result is just mediocre. She's not a culinary genius by any stretch.
But she loves it. The process of mixing, experimenting, failing, trying again, it feels effortless. She could do it for 10 hours straight and feel more energized at the end than when she started.
So her talent is in execution, but her joy, her core value, is in creation.
Precisely. And this distinction helps you separate what someone is merely useful for from what actually drives them. If you hire that baker to just follow recipes all day, she will eventually burn out and quit. Even though she's good at it, you have to align the role with the effortless feeling, not just the competence.
I think so many people are stuck in jobs that are exhausting, but they're competent at, and they wonder why they are miserable. I'm good at spreadsheets. Why do I hate my life?
Because your soul doesn't live in Excel, even if your brain happens to understand it.
Okay, let's get a little weird. Let's go into the subconscious, into the imagination. Because sometimes the real truth comes out when we stop talking about real life entirely.
The narratives, this is where we get to play Rorschach test, basically.
Yes, the what animal best describes you question. It sounds like a kindergarten icebreaker, but it's actually incredibly deep.
It works because of distance. If I ask you, what are your best personality traits? You get modest, you get shy, or you just lie. But if I ask, what animal are you? You project. You feel safe describing the animal, but really you are describing yourself, or more often, who you wish you were.
Okay, let's break down the bear example. Someone says, I'm a bear.
My first question is always, why? They might say, because I'm fierce, I protect my family. If you mess with my cubs, I will attack.
So they see themselves as a protector, strong, a guardian.
But there is so much nuance there. Why didn't they pick a shark? A shark is also fierce. A shark is also a dangerous predator.
A shark isn't cuddly. A shark doesn't sleep in a cozy cave all winter.
Bingo. A bear implies a duality. I am dangerous, but I am also soft. I hibernate. I can be a teddy bear. By choosing the bear, they are signaling that they value both the aggression and the warmth. They want to be feared and loved.
That's fascinating. What about the big categories, like carnivore versus herbivore?
That's a huge distinction. A carnivore choice, a lion, a wolf, an eagle, suggests they view life as a hunt. They are proactive, they go out and take what they need. An herbivore choice, a horse, an elephant, a deer, suggests they value community endurance, perhaps a more peaceful existence. They see themselves as part of a herd, not a lone hunter.
And what about a pest? Like, what if someone says, I'm a raccoon?
The raccoon! I love that answer. That signals mischief, scrappiness. I'm a survivor, I live on the margins, I'm clever. It signals they don't necessarily play by the established rules, but they always get by. They value wits over raw strength.
It's amazing how much is packed into just that one word. It frames their entire social approach to the world.
It does. Are they wild or domesticated? A dog person values loyalty, being part of a pack, clear hierarchies. A cat person values independence, observation, living life on their own terms. If you hire a cat for a role that requires blind, eager-to-please loyalty, you're going to have a problem.
And this extends to the stories we consume, right? The favorite movie question.
This is never small talk, ever. When someone tells you their favorite movie, they are handing you a map of their moral universe. They are telling you, this is what I think a hero looks like. This is what I think justice is.
We have the example of the hipster. You ask them their favorite movie, and they say, oh, it's this obscure Polish film from the 1940s. You probably never heard of it.
We all know that person.
What are they really saying there?
They aren't just sharing a title. They are signaling exclusivity. They are saying, I value rarity. I value high culture. I possess knowledge that you do not. It is a status play, plain and simple. It might also signal a disdain for the mainstream. I am not like the masses.
But you have to look at the context clues, too. What if a really shy, quiet accountant tells you their favorite movie is a Marvel superhero movie?
That is a clear desire for agency, for power. In my real life, I am quiet and I follow the rules, but in my head, I want to save the world. I want to fly. It's a fantasy of unbinding themselves from their quiet life.
Or a retired person who tells you they love a gritty, dark, historical drama.
They want depth. They want seriousness. They don't want to be patronized with fluff and comedies. They want to engage with the heavy, complicated truths of the world now that they have the time to do so.
So the movie isn't just entertainment, it's a resonance chamber. It resonates with the part of them that feels most alive, or the part they wish was more alive.
Correct. It reveals the narrative arc they want to be living.
Okay, let's raise the stakes. We've talked about games and movies. Now let's talk about a burning house. The crisis priority question.
What one item would you rescue from a burning house? And you usually have to add the caveat, assuming all people and pets are already safe. Though sometimes not adding it is revealing in itself.
Right, but the core concept is crisis cuts through all the clutter.
It does. When your back is against the wall, you don't have time to curate your image, you just act. Your instincts take over.
There is that film, Force Majeure. It's a Swedish film about a family at a ski resort. They're having lunch on a terrace, and it looks like an avalanche is coming right for them.
And the dad just bolts.
I remember this. He grabs his phone and his gloves, and he runs. He leaves the wife and kids just sitting at the table.
It's so hard to watch.
It is.
Now, the avalanche stopped short. It was just a controlled blast, mostly powder and mist. Everyone is physically fine. But the marriage is just destroyed in that moment.
Because you can't unsee that. You can't unknow it.
You can't. In that split second, that force majeure, his instinct revealed a hard truth. He valued his own self-preservation above his family's. He couldn't talk his way out of it because his feet had already voted.
So when we ask this question, hypothetically, we are looking for that same raw instinct. Let's interpret some of the common rescue items.
Okay, the cat.
That's easy. Values life over things. Empathy. They save the living being.
The passport.
Ooh, that's interesting. Values freedom, mobility, the ability to escape. If everything burns down, I can still get out and go somewhere else.
The wallet.
That feels very practical, almost cold.
It is. It's a literal thinker. They interpret the question as a logistical problem to be solved. How do I survive tomorrow? I need money and ID. They aren't sentimental. They are deeply pragmatic.
Versus the person who saves the old photo album or the hard drive with all the family photos.
That person values lineage, memory.
Yeah.
They see themselves as a link in a chain. The wallet and passport can be replaced. The connection to the past cannot.
It's wild how cat versus wallet basically divides the world into sentimentalists versus pragmatists.
It really does. It separates the romantics from the logicians in one clean cut.
Now, if we are looking at what people run toward, we also have to look at what they run from. We have to talk about fear.
What scares you the most?
This feels like a very vulnerable question.
Yeah.
I feel like people might lie here. They'll say something simple like, oh, I'm scared of spiders.
They might try, but even the category of fear they choose is revealing. The analysis here is simple. You fear what you feel you are unable to protect yourself against. A fear is a confession of a perceived limitation.
So we have physical versus psychological fears.
Right. If someone says spiders or snakes or heights, that is a primal external fear. It's tangible. It suggests they are relatively grounded, but they fear the uncontrollable other. It's a clean fear.
Compare that to someone who says their biggest fear is dementia or forgetting my loved ones.
That is a deep internal fear of losing their identity, of losing connection. It suggests that their self, their mind, their memories, their consciousness is their most prized possession, and the idea of that eroding is worse than physical death.
Or the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Or abandonment.
That is profound. That person is telling you, I believe psychological harm is worse than physical harm. They would rather break a leg than be walked out on by someone they love. It speaks to a deep fragility in their need for social bonds.
What about the person, and we've all met them, who puffs up their chest and says, I fear nothing?
The fearless person, usually that is a highly defensive structure.
It's armor.
It's a suit of armor. They are revealing a very specific and often brittle way of viewing their own resilience. They are likely repressing a great deal. Often the person who claims to fear nothing is the one who is most terrified of vulnerability. They're armoring up because they think if they crack even a little bit, they will completely shatter.
So no fear actually means I am terrified of admitting any weakness.
Very often, yes. The truly brave person can say, I'm terrified of failing, because they're confident enough to know they can handle the feeling of fear. The fearless person is in denial of it.
We've covered a lot of specific questions, but I want to zoom out a little to the general art of observation, this idea of thin slicing.
Thin slicing is a term that was popularized in psychology. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a lot about it, and it essentially means making accurate assessments based on very small amounts of data. It's the art of the snap judgment, but a trained and educated one.
It's trusting that unconscious intuition first.
Yeah.
That gut feeling.
Yes, but then supplementing it with deliberate observation. You get a vibe about someone, and then you start looking for the small pieces of evidence to support or deny it.
Let's talk about linguistic clues. Texts and emails. We treat them as just throwaway communication, but they are absolutely full of data.
Look at the pronouns. For a start, does someone use I constantly? I did this, I think that, I want this. That's self-focus. It could be narcissism or it could be insecurity, a constant need to prove their worth.
Or do they use we all the time?
We is communal. It distributes credit. It implies connection and a team-based mindset.
And active versus passive voice. The classic mistakes were made versus I made a mistake.
A huge difference in accountability. Mistakes were made is distancing. It removes the actor from the action. It's a coward's phrase. I made a mistake. Owns it completely.
And look at emotional charge. This is a big one for me. If someone uses overly negative, catastrophic language in a benign situation like they drop a pen and say, I'm such an idiot, everything is ruined, that is not about the pen.
That's a leak. The emotion is leaking out from somewhere else.
It implies the pot is already boiling over and the pen was just one tiny drop.
Exactly. The reaction is completely disproportionate to the stimulus. That tells you their emotional baseline is already at a high stress level. It can indicate low self-esteem or poor mental health regulation.
What about their physical environment, their home or their office?
Environmental profiling, you can read a room just like you read a text.
Openness versus closedness.
Is the furniture arranged to welcome people? Are chairs facing each other for conversation? Or is everything pointed directly at the TV? That tells you a lot about their sociability.
And the idea of excess versus lack?
Yes. What is there too much of? Too many mirrors could suggest narcissism or insecurity, a constant need for self-checking. Too much clutter could mean chaos, or it could mean creativity.
But also, what is conspicuously missing?
A home with zero personal photos. It looks like a hotel room.
That's always creepy to me. It feels sterile.
It might indicate a detachment from the past, or a desire to erase it, or simply that they don't value sentimental connection. Possessions are identity claims. Every single object in a room is there because someone decided it should be there. It's a deliberate curation of their reality.
And finally, our digital behavior, social media. I know we shouldn't judge books by their covers, but we absolutely judge people by their profile pics.
We have to be careful here because it's correlation, not causation, but there are some interesting trends. Positive photos, lots of smiling, group shots, bright colors tend to correlate with agreeableness, extroversion, and conscientiousness. They want to show they are happy, contributing part of the tribe.
And neutral photos, like landscapes, art, abstract stuff, or just a blurry photo of their eye.
That tends to correlate with openness. They appreciate aesthetics, but also potentially with neuroticism. They might be hiding themselves. They are observing the world rather than fully participating in it. They want you to see what they see, not necessarily who they are.
It's all a signal.
Yeah.
Every little choice.
Everything is a signal. The noise is just the signal we haven't decoded yet.
So we've unpacked the news, the money, the avatar, the burning house, the fears, The room. What does this all mean when you put it together?
It means we have to stop accepting the script. We have to stop asking, who are you? And expecting a truthful, well-written essay in response.
We start looking for the behavioral patterns instead. The things they do, not the things they say.
We read between the lines. We look for the emotion behind the answer, not just the answer itself. If someone gets really defensive about their news source, the defensiveness is the data point. If someone hesitates for a second before saving the cat in the burning house scenario, that hesitation is the data point.
It's about being a detective of human nature. Not to judge people, but to actually see them.
To understand them, because when you understand someone's values, their real demonstrated values, not their stated ones, you can connect with them. You can predict their behavior. You can forgive them. You understand why they do what they do.
And here's a thought to leave you with, and this one might keep you up tonight. If we turned all these questions on ourselves right now, would we be surprised by the stranger staring back at us in the mirror?
Are your values what you say they are? Or are they what your bank statement and your fears and your rescue item prove they are?
The truth is always in the behavior.